So hello everyone, welcome back to class number 16. I know you're halfway through the video editing course right now, and this class is going to be very important because this is a class where we are going to discuss about sound effects, right? Just to demonstrate how important sound effects are for you, here's a clip without any sound effects and without any music. Here you go. Can you remember who you were before the world told you who you should be? I was just a normal kid, a normal student who was attending his daily classes just before 4 years. What has changed? Why do people see me with different eyes right now? Well, I'm not sure of what exactly happened, but if there's one thing that I've learned in my life till now, it is this. Do what your heart tells you to do. You're not bound to follow the orders and become a slave that they want you to be. Learn what you want to learn, do what you want to do, just prove them wrong. Never forget this. So now as you watched it, here's a clip with just music and the video, no sound effects. Can you remember who you were before the world told you who you should be? I was just a normal kid, a normal student who was attending his daily classes just before 4 years. What has changed? Why do people see me with different eyes right now? Well, I'm not sure of what exactly happened, but if there's one thing that I've learned in my life till now, it is this. Do what your heart tells you to do. You're not bound to follow the orders and become a slave that they want you to be. Learn what you want to learn, do what you want to do, just prove them wrong. Never forget this. And right now, here's the video with sound effects and with music. Can you remember who you were before the world told you who you should be? I was just a normal kid, a normal student who was attending his daily classes just before 4 years. What has changed? Why do people see me with different eyes right now? Well, I'm not sure of what exactly happened, but if there's one thing that I've learned in my life till now, it is this. Do what your heart tells you to do. You're not bound to follow the orders and become a slave that they want you to be. Learn what you want to learn, do what you want to do, just prove them wrong. Never forget this. So you got the difference, right? My name is Tharun. Video editing has changed my life, and it can change yours too. You know, Tharun speaks quality, quantity. So hello everyone, welcome back, and this is your class number 16, and the sound effects, maybe sound effects, SFX, whatever you want to call it. This class is divided into two parts. The first class is mostly about psychology, right? How important is sound effects for you? What are the different kind of sound effects that you have? How do we use and where do we use particular sound effects? And what are some of the most important sound effects that you should definitely know as a video editor, right? This class is going to be about the psychology of where, what, and how to use sound effects, right? And in the next class, we are exactly going to discuss about, a practical demonstration of whatever you'll be learning in this class, right? So the next class will be on the Premiere Pro screen, but this class is here on the slides, right? So first things first is, you have noticed a lot of difference, right? There's a lot of difference when you add sound effects. There's a lot of difference when you add music to it. So the entire vibe of the video, the entire vibe of the scene that you're editing just gets changed if you add in some of the elements, right? If you just spend like 20 minutes or 30 minutes more on a video, it can actually, turn out a mediocre edit into one of the best video edits, which you can make your audience think like, acha, this video is being edited by an expert. So the first things first is like, why do we need sound effects, right? That we have talked a lot about sound effects and all that, but what is the exact reason that we exactly use sound effects while editing videos, right? So the first one is that we get a maximum immersive experience when you add in these small details, which are called as sound effects, right? It makes the audience stick on to the video more. It actually increases the retention of the video a lot, right? This is the first reason why we actually use, maybe do sound design in a video, right? It's because we want to make the video more pleasing to look. Like we want the entire audience who are watching the video to feel your video a lot, right? That's one of the major reasons why we actually use sound effects, right? And then comes the second thing. Whenever you're transitioning from one kind of scene to a different kind of scene, at that point of time, we use sound effects for a smooth transition between two different scenes, right? This is the second reason. Let's talk about more reasons. So the third reason is to cover mistakes, right? For example, there'll be so many flaws, there'll be so many mistakes while, a person will be recording a video, right? All these flaws can be corrected while you introduce a small concept called as sound effects, right? For example, a practical, most simple example might be like, someone said a curse word in a video, right? But then you want the video to be, pleasing to more people. What do? You just beep it, right? What is beeping? Beeping is it's basically adding a sound effect over there. correct? And then moving forward, we have more reasons like it increases the engagement of a video. When we have good sound design, people get immersed inside the video, they engage with the video a lot, right? And that makes the retention of the average retention. For example, if you're planning to edit videos for a freelancer or maybe a client, if you add in more, like if not just more, but if you add the right adequate amount of sound effects, people will actually enjoy with it, right? People will actually get engaged with the video a lot. They'll watch it till the end, right? Basically, this is like a small part of the first thing itself. And then moving forward, why else do we use sound effects? So even before we talk about different layers of sound effects, why else do we actually use sound effects while editing a video, right? Why are sound effects important? Just think about it. Like, just take like 10 seconds, right? Just close your eyes and just like imagine like how did sound effects, kind of increase, the entire video, like give you the perception that, acha, yeah, this video is very good, right? There'd be so many times a normal video edit, right? I'll just write it over here itself. There'd be a normal video edit, right? Same text, same number of visual effects, same speaker in both of this. There'll be a huge difference if you can sound design the second one properly, right? So basically what I wanted to conclude from this why sound effects for a thing is like, yeah, if you are editing videos and if you can do the sound effects part really well in a more creative manner, that's it, bang on, right? Even if you lag, every editor has his own style, right? Some people do sound effects really well, some people do color grading really well, some people do the proper storytelling wala thing really well, right? Some people do transitions really well. But at the end of the day, for all of these things to look good or to feel good, you need a good amount of sound effects to be added. So now talking about the importance, let's actually talk about this thing. Like, what are the different layers of sound effects? Like, what do you mean by layers, Tharun? Sound effects ka layers kya hota hai? What are these different layers in sound effects, right? So first things first, let's try to break down a scene, right? Let's try to break down. For example, you have a car moving from right side to left side. मान लो this is, okay, I'm very bad at drawing, but मान लो this is a car, ठीक है? This is a car or jeep, whatever you want to call it, ठीक है? Imagine the car is moving on a road, right? And it's moving in the right direction, right side. It's going from left to right, ठीक है? Now let me try to break down what are these different layers of sound effects. First one might be the car ka engine sound, right? It's passing, right? The car ka engine sound, right? Engine sound of the car. First sound effect. And then the second, car is passing by you. You'll have that air wala thing, right? It's called a swoosh. I'll explain more what it is, but yeah. So basically, you have that wind wala, zook, 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 this kind of thing, right? So you have the second sound effect over there. The third sound effect can be, for example, car is moving on a road, right? Road ka side mein there might be some trees, right? So trees might be like doing chin 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 wala movement over there, right? Or maybe like a breeze is passing by, right? Or maybe the trees, if you just imagine that this is a tree, trees might be having some some birds over it, right? So birds might be chirping, right? So you have basically some environmental sounds, right? Basically some background sounds, right? What else do you have? What else do you have? Maybe you have some ambience, right? For example, the car is moving in a forest or something like that. So you have some ambience ka sound, bird chirping ka sound, you have car moving ka sound, you have car ka engine ka sound, right? So there are a lot of sound effects while, not sound effects, but there are a lot of like elements or like layers of these sounds being added to the same scene, right? So what happens in like a good movie or something is like, people don't actually record. For example, there's a scene that I just explained, right? A car is going from left to right, right? For example, you just think that this is a car and car is going from left side to right side. At that point of time, right? So what exactly happens in movies is that these scenes, they just record, like mostly they just record the visuals, right? Visuals are being added. And whatever the sounds that you see, for example, bird chirping ka sounds, for example, some car is moving ka sound, all these sounds are actually added in the post-production. They're not actually recorded with the camera itself. I mean, sometimes they might be recorded, but for a best, output, people usually do the sound effects later, right? They take like a plain scene and then they add in the layers, like different layers of sounds. Like one layer of sound can be environmental ka sounds, one layer of sounds can be car ka horn ka sounds, one layer of sounds can be some people shouting beside ka sounds. So they actually try to mimic whatever might happen in the outside world, and they do everything in post-production. So you got it right. What I'm trying to tell you is that you can actually mimic the original scene and you can make it more immersive, right? Right sound design, if done properly, will make the audience who are watching the video to be present, to actually feel it, to actually perceive that entire thing. For example, I am not sitting here and watching the video. I'm actually inside the scene, right? That's how well you actually need to sound design a scene. Got it? So with that being said, let's actually break down different layers of sound effects that you can add or that you can consider adding while you are editing a video, right? So the first one, the most important one is, imagine we have like a person speaking, right? There's a person talking in the scene, right? Imagine I'm talking to you, right? So the first most important thing that you should do is that you should consider that this is the primary sound, right? This is the main sound, this is the actual sound which has like the story in it, correct? So the first one is perfecting the dialogue and voiceovers, right? If you might have already watched, the class 16, till class 16, you might have already come across this class called as podcast like audio, right? In that class, we have exactly, given you what filters you should use while, you are editing a talking head shot, right? How do you get that crisp quality color sound, right? So that's the first thing. You should always, whenever you're trying to edit a video, you should always first mainly try to focus on this thing. Achha, am I able to get the best level output of this dialogue, right? If you still don't know how to do it, I guess you might have missed this podcast like audio, so just go watch it again, right? And then coming back, what is the next type of sound effects that you could add? So the second one is the foreground sound effects. For example, imagine I'm talking to you, right? And I'm saying a knife is being pulled out by a person, right? I'm talking to you and I'm telling you that a knife is being pulled out by a person, right? At that point of time, if you're a good editor, what you'll try to do is maybe you'll take a graphic or you'll take like some non-copyrighted visuals, right? Or any kind, not non-copyrighted other things, or maybe some free, some video in which, what do we call it? People call it like stock clips, right? If you're a good editor, you'll introduce a stock clip of a person actually opening his knife, right? At that point of time, the primary action is knife opening, correct? So the primary action is the knife opening, which means the foreground sound, the most important sound in that scene is dialogue always, but when we have like a gap in the dialogue, you introduce, this knife sound, right? I'm talking to you and I'm telling you that a person is opening a knife. At that point of time, you'll show me the video of a person opening the knife, and uska background mein you'll be playing a knife opening a sound, right? That's like the primary sound. Like you need to visualize, what is the sound? What is the main primary sound of this scene, right? And then you need to add that sound effect after you have corrected the dialogue and voiceover, right? And these sounds are mostly the foreground sounds, right? And moving forward, what is the next type of sound effects? So we might have already gone across this class, right? We have already finished music class, but music is also a part of the SFX that you do, right? What kind of music that you choose for that knife opening wala scene, right? So that is also important. The way that you choose music, the levels of the music, we already discussed about all of these things in the music class. I know, this is more like a recollecting class for that. So that's why I'm trying to connect dots, right? For example, our brain works in this way. We try to remember things more when we can find dots between the things that we already know, right? So you already watched podcast like audio, you've already watched music class. So I'm now trying to connect different dots for you, right? So the third most important thing, once you start editing, first one is dialogues ka podcast like audio. Second thing, foreground sounds for the scenes that you added. The third thing is the music that you're adding, right? That also impacts the scene in a huge way, right? And then going forward, we have transitions. For example, you have a car. Okay, let's come back to the same example. For example, you have a knife opening wala scene, right? You have used a stock clip over there, right? You used, for example, a person is talking, right? But in the next clip, you have shown a sword opening wala scene. Okay, this is a sword, just imagine, okay? This is a stock clip, right? And then you're coming back to the main talking head shot of the audio. Talking head shot of the video, right? So the transition that you do between these, right? Imagine you can have like a film burn wala transition, right? Or maybe you can just get this stock clip, I say, slowly dissolving into the scene. Or you can just get this stock clip coming to the, like, you know, coming into the scene from the top, right? So for all these kind of transitions, you can add sound effects. And these sound effects actually impact the scene, impact the entire edit a lot, because they connect, you know, they kind of transition between the initial scene and the next scene. Got it? So that's how we use sound effects for the transitions, right? We'll be talking about what sound effects you should use for transitions or all these things later. But for now, just like try to imagine, okay? Just close your eyes and try to imagine what are the different kind of sound layers that a normal video edit can have. The first one is the dialogue, right? You fix it first, and then you have the foreground music. For example, whatever B-rolls that you're using, whatever stock footage that you're using, what is like your primary action in that, and are you adding the sound effects for that, right? And then you move on to the next thing, which is the music, right? What is the perfect music for the scene? And then you move on to the next thing, which is, acha, now I have done the sound design for this part, right? I have done the sound design for this part, but how do I connect the previous scene to this scene, right? This is the third kind of, the fourth kind of thing, which is the transitions wala sound effects. Like, just think of it in layers. And then moving forward, we have like the camera movement, right? Imagine like the camera is coming closer to you, right? It might be a slow camera movement or like a fast camera movement, right? Camera is moving in and the person is opening the sword, right? At that point of time, you also need to demonstrate that the camera has moved closer, right? So for that also we do the sound effects. And these are mostly swooshes and whooshes, right? We'll be talking about what swooshes and whooshes later. But abhi ke liye, just coming back, what are the different layers that we can fill in the sound effects is what we are discussing right now, right? So now, moving on, then we have creative sound effects. What are the creative sound effects, right? So imagine for the same scene, like you're opening a knife, right? You have added all the sound effects till now. Now imagine some people are there in the background, like maybe a girl is there in the background, right? And she's like, ah, that kind of sound effect, right? Basically, you can also become creative with the scene, right? What is like you can actually imagine, acha, what is the sound effect that I can actually add at this point of time, right? That women might not be there in the background that you're showing, but you can always add it because you are a creative video editor. You got it right. Like I'm just going over layers after layers after layers of video editing. Samajh? Like, and this is actually many people forget about this, man. Like, but you know, the way that you add sound effects will actually impact your videos a lot. Just remember this fact. Got it? So now coming back, right? What are the different types of sound effects? Like now, whatever we already discussed, right? The first one is dialogues and voiceovers. It's done. Foreground music. It's done. Background music, right? For example, this thing which I was talking about. Okay, let's say this is a tree, right? Tree pe birds, all of those things. City ka ambience sound, right? All these are like a background music which are not high level, right? These are very soft, right? Which are not so evident, right? So foreground is done, and then background is also done, which is a tree and all of these things. And the music is done, transitions ka sound effects is done, and then camera movements ka kind of sound effects is done, and creative sound effects like a girl is like kind of stuff. Like, okay, I'm so sorry, but yeah. So knife is being pulled out, and people are like maybe they're clapping or all. So you can just make it more creative. Or one of the best ways is like imagine you're adding text effects, right? So whenever you're adding text effects, you can add it with keyboard wala moment, right? Keyboard wala typing wala effect or something like that. Or you can also do one more thing is like imagine a text is like imagine here's a scene, right? Here's a scene and a text effect is moving from here to here. This, okay, text, right? T-E-X-T, got the point. So imagine that you move the text from left to right, right? At that point of time, I can actually imagine that the text itself has like a knife, right? And you can add a knife wala sound over here, right? You just need to get more creative with your sound effects, man. That's the best part. You have the entire playground. You can just play around with a lot of kinds of sound, a lot of types of sound, a lot of layers of sound. And people say the world is your playground, go just play, right? Similarly, the video editing interface is your playground. You just need to play, right? Be creative. That's one of the best important things. Like that's one of the most important things that I want to tell you through this class, right? Sound effects are for people who are creative, right? So the question here is, are you creative, right? So Now moving on, what are some of the most popular sound effects that you should always consider adding in your, bin or like your sound effects ka pack if you're adding. So I would tell you, we have given you a lot of sound effects wala pack in the folder that we sent you, right? There'll be a lot, like literally a lot. But what I want you to do is, so just build your own folder, build your own SFX ka pack, right? Because it will be very easy for you to just choose that pack, take out the sounds, right? And directly start editing instead of again going to YouTube or like Epidemic Sounds or some other platform where you're getting sound effects, or maybe even the drive folder that we gave you. Instead of going it, opening it, taking the sound effects from there, using the edit. So instead of doing all of those things, the time saver method would be like you build your own SFX pack by filling it with the most used sound effects that you already have, right? So with that being said, let's come back to the most popular sound effects that you have, right? So the first one is risers, right? Here's it. So did you see that scene? This is like a riser. Basically a sound starts from where and it increases and then it just vanishes, right? These kind of sounds are mostly used in like, imagine you want to change a scene drastically or something. At that point of time, these risers can be used. For example, watch this video. And then we have hits, right? Hits are this. So hits are mostly for, showing that impact wala thing, or like something is like dum wala thing, right? So you can again become very creative while using hits. You can just use it for materials while something is like dropping or something like that. Or you can even use for text, right? You're just, there's a scene, right? And you added a text effect and text is not coming from anywhere, it just popped up, right? At that point of time, you can add like a hit over there. Got it? And then moving on, we have swooshes. Right? So these swooshes, you'll be able to find all of these things in the folder that we gave you. But swooshes are mostly, I use it for transitions, right? Imagine I'm transitioning from one scene to other scene. I use a swoosh over there, right? Because it gives me that good effect wala thing, like acha, zik, zzz, zzz, kind of stuff, right? So again, coming back, next one is the whooshes, right? Whooshes are like a kind of swooshes and whooshes, almost similar effect, but one of them is thicker, one of them is thinner, whatever you call it, right? So basically whip sounds, whooshes wala sounds, all of these things, just become creative with this, man. Just start using these effects. Again, I also use whooshes mostly for like a camera movement, or maybe, a text is coming somewhere, or maybe I'm doing a transition from one scene to other scene, right? Maybe I'm using a film bump transition and then I'm using swooshes and whooshes in between, right? And then coming back, next one, Brahms. I mean, listen. So these Brahms are like, if you might have watched this Christopher Nolan wala scenes, right? Like whenever he introduces like, ring, wala thing, right? So those kind of things are Brahms. Like just become creative with Brahms. This is one of my favorite sound effects as well, right? So just use Brahms in like a very creative fashion. Like we'll do a visual demonstration of all of these things in the practical class. But yeah, just coming back to the things, right? Coming back to the concept, right? So the next one are the creative sounds, right? Like these creative sounds are basically like things, for example, imagine you have like a text coming up, right? Text coming up onto the screen, right? At that point of time, you can add like a sword wala sound over there, right? Or maybe you have like a pop wala effect, right? For example, a text is popping up onto the screen and you use a water droplet wala scene over there, right? A sound effect which is not at all relevant with the scene that you're editing, right? But has similar motion. For example, knife moving, right? And a text coming onto the screen has similar kind of motion, right? And text popping up on the screen, right? Just tuck, right? That and keyboard sound is like very common, right? But what if you use it with water droplet? So you got it, right? So basically, you can always get creative by using sound effects which are not at all related with the scene but have similar motion in nature, right? So these are the creative sound effects for you. So with that being said, I guess a lot of you are already using sound effects in your video edits. But one of the major important thing which you guys are missing is like, you are actually overdoing the sound effects, like overdoing it, or you are actually increasing, like you're using a huge volume for the sound effect, right? For example, I'll just show you a demonstration. Imagine this is the music, this is the layer that you are editing, right? This is the audio wala layer, right? Imagine you have your talking headshot wala audio over here, right? So this is the talking headshot wala audio. And then you have, oh shit. Yeah. And then you have, this is talking head. So how do I prefer it? It's like, I keep the maximum, volume for the talking head shot, right? And for the primary sounds that I have, right? For the primary sounds, for example, knife opening, those kind of sounds. First one is like, I keep it at 0 dB or maybe minus 3 dB or something like that. This is decibels. You can just click on G, right? And then you see, like on the right side here, you'll be able to see like a waveform kind of stuff. Like how high is the volume going, right? You can just click on the sound effect, right? And you can click on G and you can decrease the sound effect based on that, right? So I usually prefer to keep the sound of like my main audio at my like 0 decibels or like minus 3 decibels or something between them. And for the primary sounds also, I keep it something around minus 3 dB to minus 4 dB. Decibels, right? And for the transitions and the secondary sounds, for example, keyboard typing and all of those things, for these kind of things, I keep it a bit low, right? For example, you can keep it as less as minus 10 dB for transitions wala music, right? And for background wala music, for example, things which are not at all required, uske liye just go to like minus 15 dB or something, right? And this varies from scene to scene and the video to video. And you need to identify, am I actually overdoing the sound effects at this point of time? Am I actually underdoing it, right? You need to get like, see, at the end of the day, once you finish doing the sound effects for a thing, you need to see how is the final product looking like. You need to rewatch it and should be like, acha, maybe here the keyboard sound is a bit higher. Maybe I'll reduce the volume of it, right? Maybe here swoosh ka sound is a higher, like a bit higher. So what do? You just select the swoosh, click on G, right? And maybe like put it minus 3 dB or like minus 5 dB or minus 10 dB or something like that, right? You actually need to listen to the audio again, listen to the entire sound effects that you have done, and then you need to decide, acha, what is my primary audio? What are the transition wala audio? What is like the background audio? And what is the primary audio? And what are the levels should I keep for individual sound effects, right? This is one thing which you have to do, which you have to learn, because I've seen a lot of your assignments. And at this point of time, I request you, once you finish the entire video edit, I want you to watch it again and just see where you have overdone sound effects. Where can you actually decrease the sound effects ka layers, or where you can actually increase the sound effects ka layers, right? Because these things are very, very, very important, right? And the best SFX, the best sound effects are being done, right, or being perceived. The best sound effects is when you're not able to notice, acha, either sound effects actually are popping up, right? So it's like the best sound effects are non-noticeable. People don't even feel, acha, ispe sound design kiya tha. It's like, it's just, people are so immersed into the video that they don't even care about, acha, either swoosh ka sound aa rahi hai, iska sound aa rahi hai. Got it? So the best sound effects is or are non-noticeable, right? I mean, don't make it like do 0, because at that point of time, for people who want to understand it, like they don't get that immersion wala feeling, right? So just try to mimic how would you listen to the exact sound if you are in that place, if you're inside the video, if you're in the place which you're actually showing inside the video, right? Just see which one will be the loudest, which one will be the least, right? Just try to analyze these things. You be in that scene and imagine what is the levels, and then you come out of the scene and edit accordingly. Samajh rahe ho? So if you can do this, you can nail it, right? So all the sound effects that we have discussed here are already there in your, the assets that we gave you. So just open the drive folder, start making your own SFX ka pack, right? And keep a folder named sound effects. Maybe Tharun speaks sound effects. If your name is Bharat sound effects. If your name is Ankur, you can keep it Ankur sound effects. If your name is Neeraj, you can keep Neeraj sound effects, right? Make it personal, man. Make it yourself, right? So with that being said, the next class will be about the practical demonstration of this thing. We'll be actually showing you how can you add, right? We'll actually edit like a video, or maybe we can break down the best sound effects that I have done and I can show it to you, right? So with that being said, one key takeaway from this class would be do sound effects, add in sound effects, but don't overdo them or don't mess up with the levels of sound effects. Be in that scene, keep yourself inside the scene and just try to visualize which of the sound effects will be the loudest, which of the sound effects will be least, and accordingly then come out of the screen, come out of the place and start editing similarly. अच्छा, background बहुत कम होता है, bird chirping बहुत कम होता है, main car का horn sound, these are the main things, right? Similarly, when I'm talking to you, my audio should be the priority, right? So audio is priority, and then the second thing, अच्छा, maybe text wala effects, and then the third thing, transitions wala effects, right? And then the music ka layer ka sound, right? Just try to do all of these things, and this you'll learn with time, right? At the point of time, I have been editing for like 2 years also. I did not nail it properly. Even right now I'm trying to learn, so you keep learning while you do. But yeah, with that being said, I'll see you again very soon. Bye bye.